they always treated the sinew with either pitch or tar. Now they had access to tar. They could trade for it. It bubbled up out here in the southwest part of our valley. There was a big trading post on that down around Maricopa in Bakersfield area, Kern County. They would treat that on a hunting arrow so that when this went into an animal and he ran, this would come out and they could pick it up again and put another one in and shoot him again. So they only had to carry 8 or so, 6 or 8 of the shafts. And with a little sack, they carried dozens of points. The one thing about a war arrow, they didn't treat the sinew. When this went in, you grabbed it and pulled it out. That part stayed. And by the time you figured out how to get it and pull it out, the blood in you had wet the sinew, and the sinew and the obsidian stayed in. And if you survived that, you were lucky. The other thing that they did was just a straight, sharp piece of oak that they'd hardened in the fire. What's that for? Well, you can shoot people with it, but put that in a rabbit or a squirrel and they run off, they can't get down their hole. So you can run up with your bow, knock them in the head, take it home for dinner. And those arrows over there have that long, sharp hardwood stick. And the other thing that I had to go to the Department of Fish and Game and get an okay about was they always, if it was at all possible, put red tail feathers on their arrows. A red-tailed hawk is a hunter, and he very seldom ever misses what he goes after. So again, the magic of that hawk would guide that arrow to its spot, the intended place. The spirit of that hawk is still there. And that's my mark. The mountain king snake not only has black and white, but in between the black he has a red line. Any questions? When you cut the shaft, you cut both ways, and you do the same on the tail end, so you got a place for the string, and then you take, now this drill broke, but that would be a drill that they would use. They put it down, kneel down, put their knees on both sides, and hold that, and drill into it on the end so that their shaft will fit. They did this for tens of thousands of years. Archaeologists and anthropologists still have not convinced me that they know when Native Americans inhabited the North and South American continents. Ask them. They've always been here. They were created here. A lot of things turn up over time. This piece came from up on Deer Creek. It's a scraper, probably used on tanning hides. These two pieces, now, I might put a bug in your ear. I can't walk that good anymore. I just had my 89th birthday in March, and I don't go as good as I once did. But Owens Lake isn't there anymore. LA County took it. It's a big dry pond. But when it was there, over tens of thousands of years, it had a prehistoric line where the water was. And if you go into Olancha and turn to the right or east at Olancha, guess what highway you're on? What's our highway right here? Highway 190. That's where it starts up again, at Olancha, and goes into the desert. Go out a ways and up on the hillside. Dry, hot, nasty place to walk. And you better paint yourself black and white, because you might find rattlesnakes. But these pieces were up at a site that I found at that level. It had to be tens of thousands of years ago. And they were there. In this part of the country, if you find arrow points out of this material, when you go over to the coast, go over and hit Highway 41 if you can get across the water now. Go out 41, and when you get out there, you come to corners where the roads kind of do this. And 41 goes on and over towards Cottonwood Canyon. And when you're out there, notice the ridges. They stand up this way on those hillsides. South end of those ridges, when you turn and go turn and go west up the canyon, that's where this material comes from. And where do those pieces, where do I find those pieces? Way down on the southwest end of the old Tule Lake country, where there were old Native American camps on the high ground. Reading a report that I have a copy of, that was made in 1851 by a Lieutenant Darby. He was commissioned out of the Bay Area to examine and survey the Tule Lake. He came in from over north of Paso Robles and into the valley and hit the lake about, not midway, but a little south of Midway. If you go over that way, if you used to get over there, you would see a place where they have a duck club. It's a place that the state maintains. They have ponds and they let you hunt duck and geese. Well, they came through there and they went across a sandy area and they found a lot of bones. That in later years was called Skull Island. Then later Atwell's Island. And now it's a little town out there west of Early Mark and Delano called Alta. That was an island, and the lake was all around it. Atwell took pigs out there and planted them, turned them loose. And pigs do pretty good on shellfish, so they survive. They talked about coming across there and not finding much water, and he visited with the head man of one of the villages they found out there. He didn't write down any names or any tribal names. He just said Indians. And they talked to him and told him that on a really wet time when there was a lot of water, he would not have been able to come across there. He would have had to go way south and come around. He writes all that down. They come around, they cross several dry streams and a couple of villages. Lots of tules, lots of nothing. And they come to one stream that has a little water and has got some willows. They follow that on up into the foothills, and they camp on that stream where a north-south trail exists. It's Deer Creek or Tule River, one or the other. I suspect the way he tells it, it's Deer Creek. And he puts a camp there, a depot camp he calls it, and he puts a Lieutenant Moore in charge. And in his journal, he calls the creek Moore's Creek. And I found out much later after I'm reading all this, that's what the early name for Deer Creek to the military was, Moore's Creek. But he left that group there, camped, where there was good water, all cottonwood trees and oak trees, nice place to camp, and then goes on north, tells about the rest of the lake area, talks about the different larger streams that he finds. Moore's Creek, the name goes away. Why? The name has always been HorstYokut. Hoyt is the Yokut word for deer. Hoyt. If you ever hunted deer and you had an old doe come upon you and try to scare you, she'd stomp her feet and go, Hoyt, Hoyt, cough at you. When they say the word, it sounds just like a doe fussing at you. So it stayed HorstYokut, HorstYokut, Deer Creek, Deer Waters. Up above it, Tule, which is the canyon and the hot springs and so on. Any questions? They had stuff here that was important for the use of not only the Yokut, but the other tribal groups. They had access to abalone. Extremely expensive stuff. Abalone only occurs from about midway on the Oregon coast south through California. And what did they have that would be good for the other peoples? How many know what soapstone is? Excuse me, let me edge through here. There's a big flat piece of soapstone there that I was told by a couple of old timers they used to put over rocks and build a fire under and used to cook on. Well, I got some and I've made ham and eggs and pancakes on that big slab of soapstone. It works really good. That's white clay from White River. Pass it around, let people see what it is. This is a piece of soapstone. How many know where Lewis Hill is? Where Plano Road goes through Lewis Hill. When you drive through Lewis Hill, there's rock on both sides. Look on that side to your south, and you can pick up all soapstone you need. I've had this one here. We do programs for the schools. Soapstone by geologists is called steatite. But by other people, it's called soapstone. And if you scrape it and scratch it, it's also called talc. And it makes, if you scratch it, grind it up, it makes talcum powder. Okay, in that case, that stick thing is a baby carrier. And on it, tied to it, is a piece of soapstone. And it's been scratched, scraped. What do you think the old Yokut ladies did when they changed the baby? They knew about talcum powder. They had tons of it because they made soapstone beads and other items, bowls, whatnot, out of soapstone. The one thing about soapstone, there's about 3 or 4 soapstone bowls in that case that are black. They were used in a fire to cook in.
Yeah, makes sense.
It also can be used to cook with. If you have soapstone balls, nice round ones, and there was a lady who was a good friend, the picture is in that case over there, and I was visiting with her one time, and she said, I would cook in some of those baskets I got if I had some of them soapstone balls like my grandma used to have. And I said, really? She said, yeah. You know how they did it, don't you? I said, yeah. They put soapstone balls in the fire, get them hot, and then right behind you there is a piece of wood with a loop. Pass that loop stick. Don't have to worry, be careful with it. I made it. I made it to match 1 or 2 that I saw up on the res. You have to understand, my aunt was a next door neighbor with Fred and Lida Perone when I was about 4, 5, 6 years old. And they lived out here in what they called East Porterville. Fred and Lida became friends of ours, of me, of mine. Lida used to always get after me. I'd come and she'd say, "Tell me hi, hello, Billy." I'd say, "Here, here." She said, "Yeah, okay." Then I asked her one time, I said, "What do you say when you go away? How do you say goodbye?" She said, "You never say goodbye." "What do you say?" "Ham, na, tin, hin." Ham, na, tin, hin. Ham gets your attention, like hey. Now, me. Tin, hin, which is simply road or trail or way to go. So you just said, "Hey, me, down the road," basically. And what do they say in return? I found that out. Lehemka, lehemka. What's that mean? I could say nicely, "Well, go then." But she said it means, "Well, get." Am I getting close? This was used for the soapstone balls. Get hot in the fire and dip them out, and then catch them in a couple of these and put them in a basket and stir.
Water.
I forgot the word for these, but basically they call them stir sticks. And then you get that one out and you put it in the fire and get it hot again. But there's food stuck to it. What do you do about that? How many of you got to lick the bowl when your mom was making cake and whatnot? The kids took care of that and then put them in the fire. Any questions? Now they could transfer those soapstone balls until they got that stuff in the basket, boiling hot.
What did they use the soapstone balls for?
Pass it back. That lady there knows where it goes.
She's asking what the soapstone balls are used for. To heat water to cook. The lady that-
They heat those and then put those in the water?
No,
Yes.
they heat them up and then they'll put them like in the baskets.
There's a basket right there.
With water, with water. The
That
basket with
last
water.
basket that looks dirty, the big one. It's got a zigzag pattern on it. That's been used to cook in. And you can see spots of brown where the rock laid on there a little too long and burned it.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question back here. Why was soapstone any better than any other kind of stone for cooking?
Somebody tell me what he said, I'm deaf as a
Why was soapstone so much better for heat than any other stone around?
Soapstone doesn't chip when it
Some
gets hot.
Oh,
rocks,
that makes a
if
lot
you
of
put them in the
sense.
fire, they will explode.
Yeah.
They will not only crack, they will explode.
They'll explode and chip, and you put them in something that's cold, they'll,
She's right about that.
like she said, they explode. Soapstone doesn't do that.
Okay.
So these people had a great thing available to them, soapstone, and they traded with it. There's another thing that pretty much up and down the California foothills. This is called soap root. It grows right up there above Springville. It's usually about that deep in the ground, and it has long shoots that come out. Flowers on top at a certain time of year. You find it, you dig it up, and make a soapstone, a soap-proof brush. Now, that bulb inside there can be mashed up and mixed with water, and you can wash your hair with it. And it does a pretty good job cleaning things up. But you also can mash it up once you've tied the fibers of it all together in a bunch and smear it on and make a handle out of it. This one I made, that one a lady at North Fork made for me. That one's probably 40, 50 years old. This one's about the same age, because once she showed me how to do it, I had to make my own brush. And it worked pretty good. When I was small, visiting with my aunt, Fred and Lida, eventually moved from down here up to the res. Fred was always working on somebody's car or fixing an old gun that broke. He taught me a lot about gunsmithing over the years. When I was small, up on the res, I saw one of these. The handle was black, and the fibers were short, down like that. And the lady told me that that brush had brushed her grandmother's hair back. She didn't know how many years, and all of her kids and her hair. Worked fun. Okay, making arrows, you gotta have obsidian. Again, we don't have it here. It's over in the Owens Valley country. I've been out there wandering through that country north of Olancha, south of Olancha, east of Olancha, all around through the Owens Valley country where obsidian occurs. If you really want to see a lot of it, go to Mono Lake. And just before you get to Mono Lake, there's a road turns off and heads over to the desert country. There's a volcanic park in there, and you can walk up into those old volcanoes, and there's obsidian just sticking out there. And there's places where it's been broke off. And if you keep going, off to your left or north, it becomes a kind of a level prairie. There's hills to the south of you. But get out in there where it levels out pretty good and park and take a walk. You will find boulders of obsidian out in that sagebrush that was blown out of those volcanoes once upon a time. And the one thing you find every once in a while is one place where there's lots and lots of chips. Little tiny ones and little big ones. Somebody a long time ago sat there and made arrowheads and traded it for soapstone and abalone. One thing that fascinates me, and I've been all over the western United States, clear over into the Dakotas, those Indians, what we call the Plains Indians, the Lakota, which everybody calls Sioux, the Mandan, the Blackfeet, the Flathead, Shoshone, Bannock, all of those have decorative abalone
Kidding.
in their past and in the museums that are there where you can see it. And it had to come from right out here along our coastline to get there. Of course, there's some in Oregon, Northern California, and a lot of trade up there too. I brought these along. Oh, the one thing I didn't get to, if your arrow shaft gets bent, takes a little set, doesn't look real straight, take a piece of soapstone, put it in the fire, get it hot. Wet it, and then run it on the hot rock in that groove. Steam will come off of it, and then it'll take a set and stay straight. And the next time you check all of them to make sure they're all straight, and if they're not, you get your arrow straightener out. Now, for a long time, well, I wondered years ago, how'd they use them? People always thought they put sand in there and sand around the shaft to make it nice and round. No. We got a bunch of arrow straighteners in the cases. They use that to heat and steam the arrow, so that when it cooled down, it would stay straight. Any questions? Doing this in the daytime, it's not as spectacular. But at nighttime, you have to be careful. Don't say what the medicine man used to say. The medicine man's kit for making rain had 2 crystals. Why? Because if you take quartz crystal and rub it together really hard and fast, they start to glow. And in the dark makes a pretty nice glow that's visible. I had an old man over on Kern River tell me, good friend of old Bob Powers, who's an old friend of mine. You rub those together, and when you get that glow going, you go outside, you go woolum, 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 wee-ya. And be careful, that's liable to rain. Woolum, woolum, wee-ya is what he told me was thunder and lightning. Woolum, woolum is the thunder, and wee-ya is the lightning. And that was what the old medicine man was supposed to do. Make it rain. So next time you want rain, call me. I don't charge you a big.
Or flying water.
Rawhide, deer hide, buckskin. You can make all kinds of nice things out of it. Soft. Makes great gloves. Makes great clothing. Except in the summer it gets a little warm. These people here didn't wear full outfits. The women wore a skirt. It was made in many different ways, but it hung down and covered and protected. This up here was natural. You didn't worry about that. The men would make a buckskin strip, a piece of buckskin that would be about so wide and every bit as long as that table. And then take a string that they made out of deer hide. And sometimes they decorate it with stuff. And they hang that piece of deer hide over the string. Then they take that around behind and pull it around and tie it. And then reach down and get those two pieces and pull them up. Put your bite down on it and then let it drop. Then you have a flap in the front and a bikini in the behind. And that's pretty much what the men wore. Now the other thing that the cowboys copied was the same thing that people wore all over Native American people. How many know what shotgun chaps are? They tie on each side with a string. And they would sometimes wear that on their legs. And the cowboys copied it and wore them and called them chaps. Making arrowheads is dangerous. You cut yourself a lot. Now, reddish brown obsidian comes from north of Bishop. Banded obsidian, both black, white, band, and reddish brown, comes from northeast of Bishop area in that plateau country, and some of it is brown and black mixed. And mostly you'll just see big, black, shiny obsidian. Put that piece in your hand. And then you've got these little tools made out of deer horn. You can make a nice jagged edge. I can work that and work it. I don't have time to make an arrowhead here, but that's the basic way it's done. And then these with little points rubbed on them make the notches then the white man came along and they traded for metal points with notched edge in the back that goes into the wood and wraps. And copper. Copper makes the best. Fits in there, makes a good arrow, a good blade. And it cuts just as well as any other metal when it goes in. And these pads are typical of working in your hand. It didn't always work in your hand. Take a post, set it in the ground, and on top put a little buckskin and work onto the post. You don't cut your fingers and hands quite so much. Where do you get the buckskin? Make it. Kill a deer and make it. This is what it looks like once you've scraped all the hair off and all the flesh on the backside. Then you work it a little bit while it's still damp, and it'll come out like this, still stiff. But if you keep working it like this, while it's wet until it dries, you get a nice piece of buckskin. Time to take a break. 1 hour. The outhouse is there, and she's got cookies and something to drink back there. And if you're wanting to, you can come back, take a look closer, and I'll start where I left off.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's snacks and water in the back there. And then there's a restroom right over here, and then there's one out by the back gate.
Why would they want to collect tears?
Well, did they get everything figured out up there?
Train station. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay, you got it. Don't get traveling.
Yeah, they've all been taken up, which is a shame. Yeah.
One section of the track.
Remember it, no, they didn't. They say it's progress, but it's not.